All right, guys, we are now back after a while with another great adventure video here. This one is going to be a bit, I don't want to say complicated, but my God, man, is this going to be quite the adventure. So we're going to be making a x86 OpenWRT firewall. And we have some very specific requirements on how we have it set up, the connections and whatnot that we're all going to walk through piece by piece in a few videos here. To start, let's actually take a look at what it's going to look like here, right? So I have an ISP, right? So we have the ISP modem is going to be connected to our firewall, but it's not going to see this firewall at all, right? We're going to have it transparently bridged directly to the OpenWRT router that we have that goes right after it. All right. And on this OpenWRT router, I am also going to show you guys how to use Mac VLans to get more than one public IP address. Okay. I don't suggest trying to get more than one or more than two, excuse me. But hey, if you want to YOLO it and do something wild, by all means, right? I had nothing to do with it. But we're going to do that. And then I am going to set up VLANs so that we can connect to the firewall, right, from these routers and our management Wi-Fi, which we're going to make a management Wi-Fi specifically for this specific VLAN. And I am going to do it in the most simplest way possible that doesn't have to have you go through all these tag stuff, which we're going to talk about later. Now, the thing is that if you know x86 devices, right, they typically, unless you obviously get a motherboard with multiple ports, right, your standard motherboard usually comes with one Ethernet port, right? And then you can add additional ones, right? But me, physically, I have a physical limitation where I cannot I cannot use more than the two ports available to me, and I'm using that strictly for the ISP to router bridge that we're making. Right now, the third port will be available. Like if I absolutely have to, I can just connect my laptop, which I do have right now, connected directly to that third port, which we're not going to touch out of the port, right? We're just going to leave it as. So we're going to have that set up so that way we can have that traffic flow through from our routers to the firewall to make that secure connection on that VLAN while everything else is just going to the ISP. Okay. So now let's actually kind of walk through kind of the steps that we're going to be going through with this, right? So first off, if you guys didn't know, right, 2410 came out about a month ago, roughly, give or take. And one of the biggest things besides the updates to the Linux kernel and all that nerdy stuff is that you get to use the APK package manager now, right? Instead of using OPKG, they use the APKG package manager. However, it's snapshots only for right now, right? Your base 2410, I believe, will still be using OPKG. They just enabled APKG for their main branch or on the dev side, whatever. So the snapshot should be using or should have access to the APKG, which is what we're going to be using. Okay. So first thing, so in this video particularly, right, we're going to be getting that x86 device up and going, right? So the particular network card I'm using, hopefully I got it shown somewhere over here on the right, is we have a dual 10 gig network PCIe card, right? So both ports are 10 gigs, and it also, that particular card also has M2 slots in it as well. So inherently, the drivers in OpenWRT don't come default with those, right? So what most people normally would have had to do is have those drivers downloaded and then install them manually, and that can be a bit of a hassle, right? Because for most regular 86 devices, right, on a motherboard with one Ethernet port, you'd have to sit there, you have to already have the drivers downloaded, then make your connection, right, and do it. It's so much easier if you can just grab it, just install it via the internet, right? And then I'll be quite honest with you guys, I tried and I was having such a hassle just downloading the drivers for the network card. I was just like, bro, it's just so much easier if I can just use the internet and download it. So what we're going to use our Windows laptop. Remember that diagram I showed you? We're going to use our Windows laptop to share the internet to the firewall on that one port and still be able to connect to it. So I'm going to also kind of walk you guys through a little bit of that. Hopefully, it helps those that might have been having like those really specific struggles that I was, right? After that, we're going to do a quick adjustment of the ports, because once you install the drivers, x86 OpenWRT does not make any like adaptions to any of the configurations, except for just adding the ports to the system for the system recognized, right? Under the device tab, you'll see the new ports, but all of the configurations that were still stuck on like ETH0, those are still going to be there. And the thing is that you have to really be worried, or you have to really pay attention to, is that when your new ports come up, right, there is a almost certain chance that the port numbers have changed or been moved around. So I can tell you right now with my particular setup, right now it's going to be F0, ETH0, right? Once I get the other card up, it's going to move to F2, which is why I wrote that here, right? ETH2 is what it's going to move to. And so like you have to be really careful with that, just because like if you're using the regular 2410, right, I believe, because you'll be in Lucy doing this, right? So in Lucy, you'll be able to make the changes. You should be able to make the changes before getting caught up. Otherwise, right, you'll have to go in through the console and actually manually edit the .network file with the with your new Ethernet port, right? One of the nice things with the x86 devices is that they default with video output standard, right? As long as you have a video output capable device, right? So for the motherboards that have like, your HDMI ports or whatever, because your CPU supports it, or you put a dedicated graphics card like I did, because I have an NVIDIA 3060 in it, so I just can grab the output from there. And I have a NDI capture card for it. Let me move it over here, right? I have an NDI capture card for it that is going to like let us see the console output, right? So normally you'd have like a monitor plugged up to it, right? And then you could just like tap in, make it changes. Right, so we'll do that. So once we get all that set up, then we'll do the transparent bridge setup, which is where we make that ISP connect to the router without seeing the firewall, and then we'll do the VLan creation for the firewall specifically, so we can be able to manage it without interrupting that transparent bridge. Because remember, that transparent bridge, right? No traffic is going to be I want to say like go directly to the firewall with respect to like being I wish I had the word for it, but it's not like the firewall is giving an IP address, right? It's the ISP that's going to be doing the connection and doing all the stuff there. So like inherently, we won't be able to connect directly to the firewall once we set up this transparent bridge from downstream, right? We're going to need a VLan in order to actually be able to kind of penetrate that transparent bridge without being seen by the ISP or the downstream router, more or less, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, right? I'm already remoted into the firewall, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash the snapshot to it. I'm going to do that for all of the routers. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So this is me flashing the new the snapshot of 2410 for x86, right? I'm going to do the same thing for these. Let me kind of do that right now. Actually, so I'm gonna come back to flashing it just because of this is a unique setup for me, because physically this is another room. So I'm doing a bit of like tomfoolery to get all this to work. I have to disable my Wi-Fi in order to get the Ethernet port to work with these, since I have competing connections over here. But this is just unique to my setup stuff, whatnot. So don't pour too much into it. But all right, so let's talk first about the internet stuff, right? So the thing is that inherently, let me kind of, I don't know why this opened up here. So Windows, right? So Windows, when you share the internet, which I just kind of disabled it because I forgot to like kind of disable that. Let me SSH. I'm gonna open up a new tab here and SSH into it. So when you're working with a new OpenWRT installation, right, the default IP address is always 1.1, right? So we're gonna do SSH root at 192.168.1.1, right? And this should see it'll come right on up, right? cool. And as you can see here, right, you see the device says that, hey, you know, we now have APK manager. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, here's the thing, right? Windows defaults to the 137.1 when you change when you're sharing the internet, excuse me, right? So before we're sharing the internet, what you want to do is you're going to want to connect to your router directly, or you know, your x86 device directly first, and you're going to want to make a quick edit to the network file. So I'm going to show you guys kind of how to do that. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cd to etc slash config/network. And the reason why we're even going through this here is because if you remember correctly, I wonder why. Oh, okay. Sorry. I forgot network is a file, not a directory, right? Reason why we're doing this is because remember, snapshots don't come with Lucy installed. So if I was to try and, you know, as a matter of fact, if I try it right now, right? If I was to try and navigate to that, I should get a refused connection. Yeah, see, refuse connection, right? Because Lucy's not installed. So we're going to need to get Lucy installed. But if you try to share your internet outright, this is not going to work. And what you need to do is you're going to need to put in DHCP mode first, right? Because, you know, the interface is static. So we're going to, and I didn't have to navigate to the config file, but I'm doing that just for ease, right? So you guys know where's that, right? So we're going to use V network, right? V is the, you know, the text editor that, you know, is on OpenWRT here. And network is the actual network configuration file in that folder, in that etc/config folder, right? So I'm gonna go in here. Here's what the default interface looks like, right? So now what I'm going to do is right, I am going to press the I key, right, on my keyboard to put this in insert mode. And then you can go ahead and start deleting everything up to the static part. Or what you can do too is you know, to save you some time, because I like showing a few quick commands, I'm press the escape button to put myself back into like the general editor, or like the general mode, or whatever it's called, right? And I'm gonna just press the D key twice, right? The letter D key twice, and what that's going to do is that deletes a line. So as you can see here, as I press D twice, it deletes the line, right? So now once I'm here, I'm going to press I again to go back in insert mode, so I can go back into actually editing this. And I am going to change this to DHCP. Okay, let's change this to DHCP. Hit the escape button to get out of the insert mode. Press the colon button, right? So, you know, hold shift and press a semicolon on your keyboard, right? And then type WQ, W for write, Q for quit, right? That's how you save the file and quit. All right. And now what I am going to do is I am going to do a /etc/init.d/network, and then restart, right? And this is going to restart with the new configuration file of grabbing an IP address directly, right? So we're going to do that. We should probably lose the connection. Yeah, see, we lost the connection, right? Obviously, because it's in DHCP now, right? So it doesn't have that 1.1 address no more. It's going to get whatever the laptop gives it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to share that internet. So I'm going to go here, go to, you know, properties, sharing tab here, the port that I know is connected to, and then it's shared, right? So Windows defaults, like I said earlier, right? Defaults to that 137.1, right? So it gave it an IP address somewhere on there. So what we're going to do is in PowerShell, right? While we start the PowerShell up right here, I'm just going to type ARP, right? ARP-A. And that's going to show me all of the IP addresses currently like active on the system here. And so here on the interface, the 137.1 interface, because remember, we're sharing the internet through here. I have a couple of them, right? And I think that's just because I just earlier was sharing it and then I stopped. I'm going to try this first one here and see if I get a refused connection. I should get a refused connection, hopefully, if this is the right one. I can also just try to SSH to that address and see if that's the one, but it's gonna be one of those. Usually, like if you was doing this like up front, right, you would only see one address and then all of these default things here, right? Was it SSH? And I want to do root at, so it doesn't look like it's, I don't think it might be that address, is it not? Took too long to respond. Okay, so I think it's the 123 one instead. So let's try 123. And yes, it is the 123. So I'm going to hit yes here and boom, I'm back in it. Awesome. Now, this is going to be a hit and miss for you. It should have internet access right out the gate. Sometimes it does not. OpenWRT gets real finicky sometimes with like how it wants to behave with DNS stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick test, right? I'm going to ping, right? Run the ping command -c, which stands for count, right? Because I only wanted to ping 3 times so I don't flood somebody. And then I'm gonna do 8.8.8.8, right? Which is like Google's like DNS servers or whatever. And look, it does have it, right? If this fails, right, I'm gonna show you what to do in a moment. I'm a little skeptical, so I'm gonna do ns lookup google.com just to make absolute sure that this works, right? And it's taking a little too long, so I don't like that. That to me tells me that it's probably, yeah, see, so it didn't work, right? So it timed out. All right. So if the ping fell or so do the NSL lookup too. Like even if your ping works, do the NSL lookup just to make sure. And if either of those fail, what you're going to do is we're going to go back now to that network file, right? So remember, it is in etc/config. Remember, you can press the tab button to complete once you type a few letters, right? Assuming there's nothing else that's similar to it, right? So I'm going to V back into that network file here. And what I'm going to do is, now that we have our successful connection here and it almost sort of has internet access, I'm going to go back in insert mode and I'm going to do option, all right, option DNS, right? I guess what's this, apostrophe, whatever that character is, right? And I'm gonna just add the Google thing here, right? So that it knows or it can use Google to help do name resolution or whatever it is, right? Why this is necessary is supposed to just automatically grab, grab whatever your ISP provides you. I don't know, or, I don't know how or why any of this works, but we're just going to know that this is what we have to do here, right? So, and again, right, this shouldn't work because we still need to do resource C. Still taking long, so let me hit Control C to just terminate it early, and I am going to restart the network again, right? Which again, you can either just reboot it if you want to, or you could just do what I'm doing here, right? Which again, was just the etc/init.d/network, and again, right, tabs for auto completion, and then restart. So here we go. We're going to restart and it's going to disconnect again, right? Because it's restarting that whole network interface. And this time it'll have that DNS thing. Now, also do remember, right? It's in DHCP mode, right? So it's grabbing an IP address from the laptop. The laptop is going to reassign it a new IP address. So we have to ARP again to see what we have this time. See, so this time we have we have it ending in 16 this time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that IP address. Hit enter, and as you can see, we're there, and we're back. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to, we'll do the ping test again just to make sure, right? I'm gonna ping 3 times. This time, let's do Cloudflare's thingamabob there, the DNS resolution thing. Okay, that worked. So now I'm going to do the ns lookup google.com, make sure that it can resolve, and see, now it resolves without a problem. All right, so now the very first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and let's get Lucy installed here, right? So I'm gonna do apk update, and then I'm gonna do 2 and signs, right? So this lets you chain together multiple console commands, and then I'm gonna do apk add Lucy, right? And they gave you a little cheat sheet thing here, right? It should be add, yes it is, right, for the install. So apk add Lucy, right? Because I hate consoles with a passion here. So whenever I can just go straight to the GUI, that's what we're doing, and that's what we're using. So all right, so this is now coming through. Cool, we are installed. So now when we try to go to that IP address, should come up, right? All right, cool, Lucy is up. Fantastic. All right, so now let's go ahead and let's set her up, right? So first thing I just want to do is I just want to just give it a unique name, just because we're going to have other when we factory reset the two other routers, we want to be able to just be able to identify them easier. All right, so this is going to be the firewall. I'm gonna just hit save here. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's go to interface. Now, remember what I said, right? As you can see, it doesn't, the doesn't doesn't have anything but that one motherboard port. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go to software. Because we did the update in the console command, that's why this is already populated. If not, hit update list, so you know you can get your stuff there. And I'm going to install the drivers. I know for this particular network card here, it's this Kmod Atlantic. So I'm gonna go ahead and install these. Go ahead and get this on out the way. So let's go ahead and install that. Now, there is a decent chance I might lose connection. Maybe. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Okay, cool. So it's still up, right? If you lose connection, you are going to have to go back into the console. You might have to do this physically over there on the machine because the ports would have changed. And you need to identify, especially because, you know, your setup obviously might be different from mine. You might have more working with more ports, working with less, right? You need to look and see what, excuse me, what port that cord you is plugged up to is actively being used. Now for x86, right, one of the really nice things is that if I was to unplug the cord right now, plug it back in, it would show me what port it's using. So so if it changes on you, cool. If it does not, you might want to reboot your x86 device and physically and you know, take a look and see what ports are what, so you know in advance, because otherwise you'll get messed up. Now me, because I already did that in advance, I already know that the port that I am using is going to be ETH2. So I'm going to actually change this. Oh, sorry, let me go here. I'm gonna go to the interface and I'm going to change this and just say ETH2, right? So I don't lose the connection. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit save there, and I am going to save and apply. Come on, right? And of course I should lose the connection, right? Yeah, see, so I sat there and I now lost the connection. But if I look here, right, and you see it is disconnected. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to physically go over to the firewall now and reboot it. And this should certainly get all the ports up and going, right? Sometimes they come on, like as soon as you install the driver, sometimes they don't. You have to reboot it. But before rebooting it, if you already know, like you know in advance, like what ports work, right? You want to change that here first and then reboot it like I just did. So let's go ahead and reboot it, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So I just switched over to, I have a NDI capture card that I'm using to capture the video output, the stream to my PC, since the firewall is like physically in another room, and due to the physical limitations, I couldn't get it up or, you know, have it just next to me. But all right, but here's it loading back up. As you can see, it's coming up here, and we should start to see the Ethernet ports coming up in just a moment here. All right, as you can see now, it just came up. See ETH2. It started a link down. Now it's up. Now just a note, right, for the x86 device, for whatever reason, right, sometimes the reboots don't work properly all the way, so I had to power off. So give it the power off command to turn it off, and then like once it actually shuts down the computer, then you just, you know, press the power button to cut it back on. And once I did that, then like the actually would come up. So see, so the E2 port is now up, right? Because like I said, that was the one that I knew the motherboard port actually changes to. So now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and jump back to the you know, our remote computer here, and I'm going to run that ARP command, see what address it gave it to this. Looks like it might have stayed with the same one, maybe. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it did. Okay, cool. So it did. It kept the same address this time around. So that also means then that we should be able to just go back, right? Can I? Yes, I can. Cool. All right, I have it on a clipboard. All right. So Cool. So now let's go ahead. Let's jump back into interfaces, go to devices, and look. See, as you can see, they're there now, right? Like I said, that's the easiest way, so that way you can avoid using the the console too much. But okay, so now we're done. So now let's talk about what we're going to do, right? So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make that transparent bridge to go from the ISP to the first OpenWRT router we have here, right? So what I am going to do now is I am going to set up the transparent bridge using just the standard bridge device, right? So we're going to go here, as you saw, right? I did add device configuration. We'll make a bridge device, and then we're going to bond the two ports together, right? I'm going to call this, let's just say firewall bridge here. You know, you name yours, whatever you want to call it. All right, so I'm going to bridge those two ports, which I know is these two here, right? That's for both the ISP and the you know, the rest of my network there. And then of course, you know, you could set this up however you want, but that's it. We're not going to do anything else with this, right? And like I said, I'm going to show you guys the VLAN filtering without actually having to work with that whole bridge nonsense. So we're going to do that. So that's good there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a new interface, and I'm going to call this firewall net. Oh, okay, yeah, firewall net. And I'm going to make this unmanaged, and I'm going to add that bridge device, right? So cool. So, and I'm not going to do anything else. We're not even going to add the firewall stuff yet. We'll get to that next time, like when we actually get to like the snorts and whatnot, so we can like figure out what we need to do. But this is it, right? There's nothing else to do at this moment right here. That's it. We're done, right? We now have the transparent bridge. So now that ISP is going to have a connection directly to the router, and is not going to see this firewall at all, right? It's not going to give it an IP address or anything, because it's just going to get everything straight to here. So what I'm going to do now is I had to close the firmware selector. Don't need that no more. Now we're going to talk about the actual VLAN, right? So now, you know, I seen so many, you know, setups that, you know, sit there and have you do the VLAN tagging, and then you got to do this tag and untag, and like didn't really explain all too well like how these things even work. But I gave up on all of it, and I'm just going to do it a slightly different way, so you just don't even have to even worry about any of this. Okay, so first and foremost, right, like tagged and untagged ports, right? So when a port is tagged, right, all the traffic that hits that port has to have a VLAN ID. If it does not have a VLAN ID, it gets dropped, right? So usually these are like used for like, I guess, like interconnected devices, right, where both ends will be using VLAN IDs and understand how to interpret VLAN IDs. So like router to router, I might use tagged ports for those two connections, right? If I have a end device like a computer or a cell phone, I have to use an untagged port. And the way the untagged ports work is that any traffic that goes through to them, right, if it's untagged and it hits the untagged port, right, if it's an end device, then it's not going to do anything, right? But if it's if it needs to go to like the rest of the VLAN network, it is going to add the VLAN ID to that traffic, so that the next device knows where that traffic came from as far as what VLAN it belongs to. All right. So computer, right? So if computer sends traffic to here, right, it's untagged, right? Obviously, because, you know, the computer, it doesn't inherently like have VLAN IDs, right? It's going to send the traffic untagged. It hits this untagged port. It's going to get the tag added to it, and then from that point forward, then boom, right? Then, you know, it starts traversing whatever your VLAN ID network is set up to be, right? Obviously, any tag traffic that comes and is going to your computer, once it gets to the untagged port, right, is going to remove that tag off of that traffic and then give it to the computer, right? So that's how that more or less sets up, right? Again, right, if you know, if you have a specific need and you want to set up, there's plenty of videos for it. Like I said, they were all just a huge hassle. I just couldn't do it, so we're just going to do this a little bit differently where we don't have to do this, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use OpenWRT's like handy dandy, sorry, go right here. We're going to use OpenWRT's handy dandy like VLan sub interface creation thing here, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a device configuration, and this isn't going to, we're not going to be able to inherently show you anything until we get to the other routers, but it's so cool and makes setup so much easier. We're gonna go here, we're gonna add a new device, right? And I'm going to use the port that I know is connected down to the network, right? The rest of my network, which is going to be F0. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a VLan device, right? Sorry, I got to change that back. Boom, F0. And then I'm going to give this a particular VLan ID. For this case, like we'll say 3. Can I type? Cool, 3, right? Now you could leave this the default name. I'm pretty sure they probably even recommend you do. I don't like conventions, so I am going to actually give this custom name that I know, and I actually specifically used jumbo frames on my IPv6 side of the network, so I'm just going to add that there. Again, you don't have to set up any of that, and then everything else you just leave as it is. That's it. You're done. You're 90% done. What we just need to do now is we just need to make the interface. Now, what I am going to do is I am going to make this a static client, right? So I'm going to call this our virtual network here, right? So this is our virtual network. Sorry, typed in too many characters. And then I'm going to add that VLAN sub interface that we just made, right? So I'm going to create that. And I am going to put this on the, let's say the 5.0 interface there, right? So 192.168.5. You know what? And then again, right? Because I'm a stickler on convention. We'll just make it 5.5. Okay. Again, right, most people do 5.1 or, whatever sub-interface 0.1, right? If this is going to be the one gateway that's going to be handing out your IP addresses, right? I'm just showing you all these extra things so that if for whatever reason you wanted to set them up like this or do this, right, you know how to do it. Or you can see how it's done, right? Now, the gateway. Now, with regards to like how this is set up, okay? Now, OpenWRT defaults it to whatever sub interface.1, allegedly, right? Allegedly. I've been in situations where this apparently does not work as you would think it would, okay? What I need to do is I have to give it, and oh, I see that I typed in an extra 1 there. Let's get rid of that. I have to give it the IP address of this gateway here. Sorry, just doing this right now. Another thing you will notice defaulted in OpenWRT is that OpenWRT will not let you save this. It's going to complain that it normally would not let you save this because it would complain that this should not match the IP address on this interface because it would normally just default it anyway. That will not work. I just can't get it to work for the life of me, right? If you're dealing with that, right, what you'll just do is you'll just temporarily change this IP address to something else real quick. Save it. Right, then put the original IP address you wanted on here, so 5.5, and then change it back, and then it'll work, right? So let me just, in fact, I'll just give you a quick example here, right, just so that you can see, right? So if I go here, right, you see that it's complaining, and if I wanted to make any other changes, like if I wanted to disable this interface, it's not going to let me do it because, like I said, it says it's not supposed to be the same. So I have to change this back to this. Can I save now? Oh, do I need to? Do I have to? And look, see, and it won't even go back now to that. I don't. Oh, whatever. But let's go ahead and hit save, and it's not letting me do it. Let's refresh this real quick and see. I see I have 22 now. Oh, here we go. Right. So now we got 2 IP addresses being added, right? This is another bug in OpenWRT that you got to be careful with. But since this is on like a separate interface, it's not like we're doing this on the main interface. If you're working with this on the main interface, you're about to get locked out because they sit there and they'll tell you that, oh, if you wait 90 seconds, right, OpenWRT will revert back. That doesn't work all the time, right? If it has this weird, unique bug, it will not revert this and you will stay locked out. So do be warned. I have experienced it a couple of times, enough already to where that is a real thing. So just to be careful with that. But so let's go back to this, and I actually just finished back through with setting up how we were going to have it set up. So I'm going to put this back how I want it, right? Again, right, your life would just be much easier. You've probably just used that one. But like I said, this doesn't always work as intended, so I need to specify here in the gateway. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to uncheck this use default gateway checkbox. This is so important. You might have experienced this in other dilemmas you may have had when you started having multiple interfaces. If you do not uncheck this box, right, what will end up happening is your device, for every interface you make, is going to make a default route through that interface, right? It's going to attempt to try to use that for internet access, right? So it's going to slow your stuff down, right? You should have all your interfaces default gateway disabled, with the only one being the WAN port. There may be some argument about the LAN interface being the default gateway. I don't know. I'm gonna just go ahead and let you know that up front. But like I said, I'm not going to bother too much with it. We're going to come back to the firewall stuff, so don't worry about it. And then we're going to set up DHCP on this. Reason why we're setting this up, oh yeah, see, so now, because when the moment you press that button, it automatically saves. So now I'm going to have to put this back now to that. But we're gonna enable DHCP on this because I want this to be handing out IP addresses on this VLAN for all of the devices on that VLAN ID. This is a specific unique requirement for me. You can leave this static. You can make all your other stuff static, right? But especially since we're going to have the management Wi-Fi, because we're going to have Wi-Fi on for that specific VLAN interface, and I want it to be given IP addresses to it, I'm going to do this just because, I just think it's kind of cool. So again, right, you probably wouldn't set this up this way, but I'm just doing it because, again, right, just showing you guys how to do, all the stuff here. So I'm going to put this all in server mode over here. Where's that other one? Cool. It is, I guess you get to be hybrid mode, huh? Do that. And then I'm just going to come over here, enable the management config flag, and cool. That's it there, right? So cool. So it has that. And all cool, right? And another reason why I'm just doing this too is so that we can actually see, we can get verification up front that these VLAN IDs work if they actually grab an IP address from this interface, right? So we'll know the moment we set it up if our connection is good or not, because it'll immediately get an IP address from the subnet. So that's why I kind of really like setting it up this way anyway. But okay, so I don't see anything else I need to deal with. I'm doing some personal testing for some stuff there, so that's the only reason why I'm disabling this packet steering. You don't have to worry about this on your end. All right, and then we're gonna hit save. All right, cool. Now we're gonna go to firewall. So let's go to firewall, and we're gonna make a firewall zone specifically for this interface. Just a real quick note about the firewall zones, right? Like the way these firewall zones work is these firewall zones are attached to an interface you make. Let me just open this up in a new tab. Right. And then the rules on that firewall zone dictate how traffic moves, like through this particular interface, as well as cross moving into other interfaces. So like, for example, like most firewalls, the default firewall is set up to where your LAN interface, right, is going to allow traffic to go to the WAN port, right, which is the internet. And then, of course, then it has like a zone specifically for the WAN interface, so the rest of the internet, and it sets most of the stuff to reject because you don't want like the world being able to access, obviously, a lot of your stuff to begin with, right? So, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a new zone, and I'm going to call this, I'll just say internal net, right, as our firewall zone here. And I'm going to want to accept everything, right, because it's our own internal net for management purposes only. And I'm going to cover that new interface we just made, so virtual network. And if I wanted to allow that interface to access the internet, I could give it the WAN port. But I'm talking about, this would be for the other router. So like the router that has the specific connection to the ISP, right? Remember this firewall, right? We have it in transparent bridge, so it does not have a valid connection to the ISP, which is the reason why this WAN is even empty to begin with, because it's not even a tie to that port, that network interface. So yeah, so this is all set up. You don't need to really set up anything else. If you wanted to get even more granular with like what devices specifically you wanted to allow, which we'll do on our own time, this is where you set them up, right? Where you could say, hey, restrict what is it called, right? Restrict it to like these specific IP addresses here. But like I said, we're not gonna really bother with any of that. So let's go ahead now and hit save. Go to traffic rules here. And now we're going to add a traffic rule to allow GUI access through that firewall zone, right? Or through that VLAN traffic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new firewall rule. I'm going to call this access to GUI for VLAN, right? This is going to be TCP. This is going to come from that VLAN zone. And I am going to, and again, right, you know, if you wanted to sit there and you wanted to lock it down further, you could specify specific IP addresses. You could, to make your life easier, you could probably do this afterwards, after you set up everything else, and then the firewall is handing out IP addresses, because then you can come here, see what IP addresses it handed it, and then click on them after you make them static here. But you know, we're not going to bother into that right now. We're going to do 80 and 443, right? 80 is the standard HTTP port, 443 is standard HTTPS port. And then the destination zone is going to be this device, right? Because we want to get access to the GUI. And then destination ports is going to be the same, 80 and 443. And then of course we're going to accept. And yeah, there's nothing else really to set up here, so we'll just leave it be. And cool. And then that's it. Now that is all we need to set up. And again, like, we won't know most of the stuff is set up properly or like good until we actually get the other stuff down there set up, the other router set up. But I'm just going to take a quick look here just to make sure that everything else was set up handy dandy regarding DHCP. I just want to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. Doesn't look like it. Everything's looking good. Yeah, everything's looking good. Okay, cool. Right, so now let's look at all of the changes we're making all in one go. Right now, remember, right, there's currently a bug where when you mess with that IP stuff too much, it does all of this extra stuff. If you was working on your main interface that you're connected to, I'd be very worried about this. I would probably trash all this and then do it again, just so we don't have that. But like I said, we should be fine because it's on the VLAN. So we're just gonna go ahead, hit and apply on that. And cool, right? So cool. So now it's on. Oh, I actually didn't bother to put this back. See, let's go ahead and actually put this back here. And I don't think there was nothing else for me to have to deal with, right? But before I even look at that, I'm just curious now, right? Because remember I said about that bug. Let's look at the configuration file real quick, right? So config network. All right, it's important I show you guys this just in case, because my God, man, can things get messy? Okay, cool. So it's not even in there. So that's good, right? So let me quit out of that so I don't accidentally do anything. All right. I changed that back to what I originally wanted, which was the 5.5. And like I said, see, because I did it that way, it let me put it back to where, you know, it's on that address. It has that specific IP address, and the gateway is at that, even though OpenWRT doesn't like it. But like I said, that's the only way to get that to work if you're going to do it that way. And that's it. Now we're good. Everything is set up here. So, you know, we're gonna stop right here. This was part one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up the other two routers, right? So remember, we just did this part where we did the drivers. I showed you guys how to use Windows internet sharing to kind of make your life a little bit easier for that. gave you guys the warning about the ports because they will change up on you. And so just be prepared for that. And then, of course, how to do the transparent bridge setup and then the VLAN creation, which instead of doing all of that, VLAN filtering, bridged, all that stuff, right? We just literally just made it off of the port that we know that we're using, that we're connected to. And then we're going to go from there. So now let's go ahead and jump back. So we'll end the video here, and then we're going to pick it back up, resetting the other two routers and going forward. So thanks.